Hi everyone. Almost the end of Mercury retrograde. Yes, I'm sure that's what many of you are saying. It's been particularly clunky this time, but let's be fair with Mercury because there's been a lot going on around this. Other retrogrades, other movements. Yeah, it's been quite a time, hasn't it, with the eclipses also. So, Mercury retrograde does get a bit of a bad, reputation because it can play havoc with technology, communication, and things like that. But with all retrogrades, it is a valuable period of introspection. So it's the same for Mercury. It is a time of introspection. Now, he started his retrograde in Aries on the 15th of March. And during his retrograde, only last week, he retrograded back into the sign of Pisces. And I mentioned in other astrology reports that because of everything else that was going on with Venus and Neptune as well, there was this heightening of the energy at the cusp point between the end of Pisces and the beginning of Aries. So 12th house, first house energy, hidden into seen energy and vice versa because of the retrograding back. They were almost doing a dance of activation between them, these planets, but really highlighting endings and beginnings, particularly because we've just had eclipse season as well. So a lot of clarity, a lot of epiphanies, a lot of awakenings and lifting of the veil. And this is kind of encouraging us to obviously close out cycles that are not serving us, for us to move forward and stepping more into that sovereignty because we are in Aries season at the moment. But with Mercury retrograding back into Pisces at the end of March, he's had a little bit of time of introspection, revisiting old ground in Pisces. So connecting in, when we think of communication, connecting in with our intuition. And what do we need to understand when it comes from a place of the soul, but also as he's then going to be moving back into Aries, it's all about, understanding where we might need to be a bit more bold with our communication. So the Piscean essence will help Mercury understand the spiritual aspects, the connecting in with the intuition, and also well, we need to really talk to ourselves from a place of unconditional love on our journey in that respect. Now, Venus also being there and doing the same, retrograding back from Aries into Pisces, is reminding us of values and also our worth in that respect. So we've had the two side by side. And the moment that Mercury actually retrograded back into Pisces, so he was 29 degrees 59 minutes right at the end, formed an exact conjunction, same degrees, same minutes with Neptune. So that was major activation with the Neptunian energy. Again, heightening that spirituality. Okay, so what I've just mentioned there with the communication with the soul. But also, I did mention on my previous astrology report that Mercury can be known as a bit of a trickster. And certainly when it comes to communication, we have to use our discernment. And with that exact conjunction with Neptune, although Neptune is not in retrograde, of course, we have to just be mindful of any sort of deceptive messages. Okay, so that's where the discernment really comes into play. And certainly because of the eclipse season and the heightening of that energy of clarity and epiphanies, it might be that certain things were revealed in that respect. Okay, so take it as it resonates, leave it if it doesn't, of course. But we've had to be aware of that. And again, with Venus in Pisces as well in retrograde, understanding, our values and our worth. So the alignment with our values and how worthy we feel in that respect. Okay. To embody that, to embrace that, certainly in terms of what has been illuminated to us and what we've realized and what we now need to focus on moving forward. Okay. I'm going to pull up the chart and you'll see there's more energy in Pisces now because of all of that going on, even though we are in Aries season. But we know that Aries is a cardinal sign, so we can actually lead from the soul because the sun is there, and we can understand, right, okay, let's step into our sovereignty and let's do what we need to do in view of the energy that's currently going on. Okay, so let's hop into the chart and have a look. So bear with me whilst I just share the chart. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is the moment. This is a freeze frame of the cosmos at the time that Mercury stations direct in Pisces. Okay, so for us in the UK on British summertime now, that is 12:08 on the 7th of April, so that's Monday, okay? Apply your own time zones as appropriate, but it should be the 7th for everybody, I believe. So we're going to start off on a Monday with Mercury stationing direct. So that should allow things to flow a bit more, and certainly for communication to open up a bit more at the start of a week, which is obviously good news. And hopefully we will feel that it's lifted a bit. Now, we are, of course, going to be in the post-shadow phase for a good couple of weeks, so just bear that in mind. But certainly it should free up communication, okay? Now, what I noticed straight away when I looked at the chart here is that Mercury is sandwiched rather nicely between Saturn and Venus, and I'll come on to that in a moment, and the North Node. So they're all conjunct, okay? And communication is the thing that is in the middle of, our purpose and our lessons. So understanding like what we've had to actually learn, what Saturn's been teaching us about getting us in alignment with our spiritual truth and our soul's integrity, understanding these tests and these lessons that we've had to navigate and go through, and where that might have challenged our expression or where we might have needed to speak up. Okay, our communication is there. And this is what is empowering our path forward. So it's almost like communication is pivotal, is at the center of these lessons and our purpose and path forward. Certainly when we think of that divine path forward, when it comes to connecting in with our intuition and following our inner compass as that guide moving forward, that's essential to what's going on. Okay, it's a foreshadowing of this energy when Mercury stations direct. And speaking up from that sovereign place, but from the soul space as well, should then empower us to move forward more on our path and enable us to close out lessons that Saturn has been teaching us. And these lessons, by the way, because of this exact conjunction, which you will see between Saturn and Venus, now look at this, 25, 15, they are both the exact same degrees and same minutes. So when Mercury retrograded back into Pisces, it was exactly a conjunction with Neptune. And now at the time that Mercury stations direct, there is an exact conjunction between Saturn and Venus. These lessons are to do with worth, and these lessons are to do with love. Okay, so it's quite a big deal. It's quite a big deal because if we're also needing to connect more with our intuition to understand these lessons, we are becoming closer to the truth when it comes to love, our values, our worth, as well as, where boundaries are needed, because that could be a simple lesson in love that we need to put boundaries in place. Okay, it's not going to apply for everybody, but it's big energy, and it's empowering masculine energy with Saturn. That's very authoritative energy, and Venus, which is very soft energy. So the masculine and feminine energy, even though it's not Mars and Venus, but it's still masculine and feminine energy that is coming together to actually harmonize to reveal these lessons in love and worth. Okay. So that's also very profound. Now, at this time, we know the sun's in Aries, okay, but as you can see, yes, there's a lot more going on in Pisces, right at the tail end as well, compared to Aries. But the moon will be in Leo, okay? So we've actually got, the sun is in a fire sign and the moon is in a fire sign. And Aries is cardinal, that's what starts things off. So it comes from the soul essence, that's what starts things off from a sovereign place here. But we may need to feel courageous in our emotions to guide us forward, especially where we might need to speak up, relating to our path, relating to these lessons in love. We may need that courage. And the moon is actually in opposition to Pallas in Aquarius. So when we think of fighting for this reality that we're trying to create and achieve for ourselves, what are we willing to fight for? Well, we're wanting this new reality. We want things to change. We want this new reality. And we might have to just apply some courage in order to get there. Certainly find some courage within our emotions, or also accept that we need to show ourselves. We need to show up to these situations with courage in order to then receive the reality that we are trying to create. And Pallas is quite strategic energy as well. So understanding what we need to apply to move forward in that way through courage with that Leo energy and acknowledgement of needing to step up and be seen for who we are. Okay. There's also opposition between Mercury and the South Node in Virgo. So yes, okay, there may just be some challenging energy coming up still when it's to do with detachment from the past. But I've said before, use the South Node as a springboard almost, where you've understood the wisdom of what the South Node is trying to tell you in this period of time whilst it's in Virgo, where we've tried to control the outcome and we need to move more into that surrender and flow of Pisces. So, okay, we might feel like we need to control what we're saying, and that's a good thing, but we need to sort of express ourselves without worrying about the outcome. It's more about, because of Mercury being sandwiched between the North Node and Saturn and Venus, if we need to speak up and actually put a boundary in place, we need to do that because it's coming from the soul, it's coming from our intuition to do that. Not be worried about how it's going to be received or if it's going to mean that we close out cycles. So we need to just, not be sort of reckless with it. But what I'm trying to say is it's more of a surrender to what we're doing. So we're speaking up because we feel we need to. So that's coming from the soul. We feel we need to in order for us to progress on our path forward. But understanding that from speaking up, it might enable certain things to close out. But those things are possibly what needs to close out. And it can also be challenging, that energy within the self, where maybe we have tried to be too much of a sort of perfectionist in what we're trying to do. And that's held us back in our expression. So it's looking at that as well. Okay. Mercury is in harmonious sextile to Uranus in Taurus. So our physical reality is changing and our expression is going to enable this. So now Mercury stationing direct and hopefully easing that flow of communication more is going to enable situations in our physical reality to change and vice versa. As we experience change in our physical reality, that should then enable us to feel more comfortable to express what we need to express from that authentic soul perspective. Mercury is also in a harmonious trine, okay, and it's a grand trine with Mars in Cancer and also past Fortuna and Juno. Now, Juno is 0 degrees of Sag. So it's kind of a grand water trine because we have got past Fortuna, but the trine also connects in with Juno here. So this was interesting to me because on a couple of reasons. We have got the fire energy within the moon, our emotional home, and the sun, our soul's essence. And the other fire energy is, of course, Sagittarius. So we've got in Sag, we've got the vertex point, which represents that fated and destined moment. And at this particular freeze frame of the cosmos, the vertex point is showing up in Sagittarius, which is the journey, the quest. And we've got Juno there in retrograde. So this is about commitment to the quest, commitment to what we are discovering on our journey, commitment to our path. Okay. It's still driven from the soul if we look at all of those fire signs, because Aries is the cardinal sign. Okay. Sag is more mutable, so it's going with the flow. So there's that surrender again. But it's definitely to do with its fated and destined commitment to our path. And our expression, because we're looking at Mercury, is part of this, particularly because he is sandwiched between the North Node, our purpose and our path, and Saturn and Venus. So worth and values when it comes to the lessons we're learning, the structures we want to put in place for ourselves, the rules we need to set, the boundaries we need to set, okay, on our path, because we've understood our worth in that way. So past Fortuna is the water aspect because at this point, past Fortuna is in Scorpio. So that's what makes the grand water trine. But we have also got, I've not drawn it as two lines, but there were two lines connecting Juno into the mix as well. So we need to be mindful that it is to do with commitment to the path as well. But in that trine, okay, so if we look at past Fortuna, Mercury and Mars, the cardinal energy is Cancer. So that's Mars. Okay, now Mars is going to be in Cancer moving forward until the 18th of April, and that's when he ingresses into Leo. And I've already looked ahead at the chart, and there is more kind of significant energy around taking action, because there is almost like this showing up and being seen and recognized by taking that action from a masculine drive. Okay, whereas at the moment he's still navigating through the sign of Cancer and he's still having to feel and process these feelings. Okay, so that's still driving us forward because we're processing things and then we're understanding what we need to maybe express and speak up. And also that is basically where our success lies, because past fortune is in the mix. So if we can actually understand that what we are receiving, what insights we're getting, what we're discovering is actually enabling us to process, even if it's uncomfortable feelings, but we're still processing these things, that is also enabling us to speak up from a place of that spiritual integrity and enabling us to then receive the success that we deserve. Okay, it's a successful move to basically process uncomfortable feelings because it's enabling us to speak up. Okay, and commitment to the path and what we're discovering is part of that because of Juno in the mix. We've also got a yod. So this is a finger of God. Okay, and the finger of God, the yod here is pointing towards Poseidon and Vesta, also in Scorpio, and they are conjunct. Okay, so we have got this yod and we've got Jupiter at the base along with the sun. Okay, so the focus, because of where the finger of God is pointing, the focus is on Poseidon and Vesta. So what is being churned up from the depth of situations and our soul to be seen when it comes to our sacred flame energy? So what is it that we're discovering that we need to really embrace in terms of that sacred flame, creative inspiration energy? So what sparks that flame within us? What are we being shown about it? Okay, is it inspiring us to create something? Because that's where the focus needs to be now, on what sparks that flame within us. That's what we want to pursue as part of our path. But understanding that Poseidon is churning it up from the depths of the ocean, so there could be emotions involved in this, but it's enabling us to see. Okay, it's enabling us to see things, and that might be where also it ties in with Mars, because we might have to process certain things, like perhaps we've sabotaged opportunities before where we could have actually taken a leap of faith and pursued our sacred flame energy, be creatively inspired by something, pursue something that's quite artistic, that sparks that flame of passion within us. And you know, we've maybe not taken an opportunity, or we sabotaged it, or we didn't believe in ourselves. So of course, you know, Mars in Cancer, we're feeling those feelings where we've not taken action before. Venus and Saturn, almost like, you know, our values have changed because we've realized that maybe we didn't take those opportunities before. And that's also a lesson that Saturn is showing us. So it's all the bigger picture. Astrology is always the bigger picture. But back to the yod, that's where the focus is. Okay, what's being churned up for us to see? That is that sacred flame energy. What sparks that creative inspiration, that passion that ignites within us that we want to pursue. Focus needs to be on that, okay? And understanding what that is in order to pursue it. And at the base, we've got the soul essence, but from a sovereign perspective. So believing in oneself to do that. And also being hopeful with Jupiter, but realizing that, okay, we want to expand in this area and we've got hope for it, but we might need to investigate something a bit further, because perhaps we know what does spark that flame within, but we don't quite know how to go about pursuing it. So we need to look into it, we need to investigate it in order to then allow for that expansion. And, you know, with those two at the base, it's soul expansion. Okay, there's some inner growth going on as part of this process as well. Okay, so I feel that's very profound to look at. And if we link back, you know, to Mercury, of course, what our intuition is telling us about all of this is what's being shown to us in terms of what's coming up and what we're needing to process. And, you know, the moon in Leo is also asking us to be more brave when it comes to understanding what we feel about certain situations, and to not be hard on ourselves if we've missed opportunities before that we've wanted to pursue, because we've had to learn lessons about that and overcome certain things, you know, to step into that sovereignty. So it's not about being hard on ourselves, it's about understanding the lessons and realizing our worth as a result of this with that Saturn and Venus conjunction. Absolutely. Okay. So if I just show you the very quickly the chart against the UK's chart, just to give some context for the house system, you can do the same with your own chart, of course. So here we've got Mercury, and this will be happening in the 9th house. That's where all of that Pisces energy is, and some Aries as well. That's where Neptune still is. So perhaps the veil is still lifting, we're still discovering stuff, we're still becoming aware of stuff, but it's definitely about learning and discovery. And the South Node is in the 3rd house. So, you know, that kind of detachment from cycles and situations that have challenged our expression. You know, we're trying to step forward into our true expression of self to pursue what we want to pursue, and understanding that, you know, we have to kind of overcome certain things and receive that insight via our intuition so that we can then speak up about it. The sextile with Uranus, I've not drawn it on here, but Uranus is in the 11th house, 1 degree off the UK's natal Venus. So there's something about values within connections with others and how that's changing, okay, in the physical reality and what we've discovered, and that's what's enabling the change to happen. Mars is still in the 12th, so definitely hidden stuff that's being processed in terms of, you know, these feelings that might be somewhat uncomfortable. And then you've got, you know, Juno, past Fortuna, vertex point, obviously, and Poseidon and Vesta in the 5th house. So it's definitely symbolic of the heart space, and also needing to show up for these opportunities, the commitment to the path, but showing up for what you want to pursue. And with the moon in Leo, which is in the 2nd house there, it's about understanding your worth when it comes to that courage that's needed to step into that. It's about knowing one's worth. And Venus is, of course, showing us that with Saturn there as well. Pallas is in the 7th, and that's where that opposition is with the moon. So not quite in the 8th house, which would be a house opposition, but Pallas is there, okay, in 15 degrees of Aquarius. So there is opposition with the moon in Leo at 16 degrees. So, and you know, she's actually in the 7th house there. So relationships again, understanding that, you know, what you're trying to fight for in your reality when it comes to your relationships with people, places and things. We know connections with others are changing because the 11th house, we've got Uranus there, but it's about forging new relationships, and that could be with a place. That could be that you want to pursue something in a certain place. It might be that you want to pursue a certain project, and that's what you're trying to create and you're trying to strategize. Well, the moon in Leo is then saying in the 2nd house, know your worth and find some courage in order to pursue that, because that could be part of that new reality that you're wanting to create and empower yourself. And Pluto's there, so deep, profound transformation going on at this moment in time. Okay, so I'll leave it there. I hope that helps. It's just to bring you some insight. I mean, we've got some other things coming up during the week as well. We've got a full moon in Libra coming, and of course full moons are great for illumination as well as working with the lunar energy to release, of course, and Libra being the opposite sign to Aries, because we know that's what happens with a full moon. So there might be clarity that comes through regarding relationships, okay? But also when we think of fairness, reciprocity, equal give and take, harmony that we're wanting to experience, you know, detaching from anything that's not serving us in that respect. And, you know, we want to strive for that fairness going forward, of course, within our relationships. So it could highlight certain things in that way. And then after that, we will have Venus stationing direct. So yes, there's still quite a few things coming up within the week, but Mercury will kick things off on Monday by, of course, stationing direct and then beginning to move forward and opening up that flow of communication again, which we are all super grateful for in advance. So thanks, Mercury. But as I said before, valuable periods of introspection. So we need to be grateful for what's being shown to us, because it's helping us step into, you know, who we truly are and what we need to do. Astrology is always the bigger picture. So I wouldn't just say, well, Mercury is stationing direct and that means this. I show you the chart and I show you all of the different aspects, because it is a bigger picture. There is a lot more going on than just what Mercury is doing. Okay, definitely lessons in love and worth that are happening. Boundaries might need to be applied. So take it as it resonates, of course. I'll be back for further astrology reports. Until then, I'm sending you love and blessings. Take care and bye for now.